The air is thick with the smell of damp and decay. A single flickering light bulb illuminates the narrow corridor. Cracked walls are stained with years of grime. This is not a scene from a dystopian film, but the reality for millions living in China's high-rise slums. Across the country, towering symbols of the nation's economic boom are transforming into dilapidated traps for the people they were meant to house. Step inside one of these apartments and you'll find families crammed into tiny, subdivided units. Overcrowding is rampant. Basic sanitation is a luxury. Lifts, often broken, force residents to haul groceries and water up dozens of flights of stairs. The dream of modern urban living has morphed into a struggle for basic dignity. These are not isolated incidents. This is a crisis unfolding on a massive scale, from the outskirts of megacities to smaller industrial towns. It's a stark reminder that behind China's glittering facade of progress lies a darker reality for those left behind in the relentless pursuit of growth. This is the story of China's high-rise slums, a story of broken promises, systemic neglect, and the human cost of unchecked development. It's a story we must confront, understand, and ultimately strive to rewrite. In the bustling city of Chongqing, a metropolis famed for its futuristic skyline and dramatic mountainous terrain, the promise of modern living once soared as high as its gleaming towers. For decades, these high-rises stood as symbols of progress, ambition, and a brighter future for millions of Chinese families. But for Mrs. Li, a retired factory worker, the reality is far from the dream. Each day, she faces the daunting task of climbing the steep stairwell of her 30th-story building, a journey that has become both physically exhausting and emotionally draining. The elevator, once a lifeline for residents, has been out of service for months. Its silence echoes through the building, a constant reminder of neglect and broken promises. For the elderly and those with disabilities, this is not just an inconvenience, it's a daily struggle for dignity and independence. Carrying heavy groceries up to her 20th floor flat is a grueling ordeal that leaves Mrs. Li breathless and weary. Each step is a test of endurance, and each trip a reminder of how quickly comfort can turn into hardship. "It wasn't always like this," she says, her voice tinged with fatigue and a quiet sense of loss. She remembers a time when the building was filled with hope and excitement, when neighbors greeted each other with optimism about their new homes. When we first moved in, the building was new, a shining beacon of progress, a place where families believed they could build a better life. The walls gleamed, the elevators ran smoothly, and the future seemed secure. Now, years later, it feels as if the very structure is crumbling around us. The sense of pride is faded, replaced by a growing anxiety about what might fail next. Mrs. Li's story is not unique. Across China's sprawling high-rise communities, countless residents face similar challenges. The dream of urban prosperity has given way to a daily reality of struggle and uncertainty. The buildings themselves bear the scars of years of neglect. Once pristine exteriors are now marred by stains, cracks, and signs of decay. Cracks spiderweb across concrete facades, hinting at deeper structural issues that threaten the safety of everyone inside. Exposed wires dangle precariously from crumbling walls, a hazard that grows more dangerous with each passing day. Leaking pipes create pools of stagnant water in dimly lit hallways and basements, turning communal spaces into breeding grounds for disease and discomfort. The once bright paint now peels away in long, curling strips, exposing the rot and neglect that lie beneath the surface. These are not merely cosmetic flaws. Each sign of decay is a warning, a signal that the very foundations of these homes are at risk. For residents, these hazards represent a very real threat to their health and safety. Every day brings new worries. Will the next rainstorm flood the hallways? Will a spark from faulty wiring ignite a fire? The lack of proper sanitation and maintenance only adds to the risk, increasing the likelihood of infectious diseases, and making daily life a constant battle against filth and neglect. Faulty electrical wiring left unrepaired poses a constant fire hazard, keeping families on edge and robbing them of peace of mind. And as the years pass, the structural integrity of these buildings is increasingly called into question. Residents wonder if their homes will withstand the next earthquake or storm. Living in these conditions takes a heavy toll, both physically and emotionally. The sense of isolation grows as neighbors move away, and those who remain are left to cope with the mounting challenges alone. The constant fear of accidents, the lack of basic amenities, and the feeling of being trapped in a decaying environment breed despair and hopelessness. Dreams of a better life have faded into daily survival. This is the human cost of China's high-rise crisis, a cost measured not just in crumbling concrete but in lost dignity, shattered dreams, and a pervasive sense of insecurity that haunts every corridor and every home. To truly grasp the roots of China's high-rise crisis, we need to journey back to the era when the country was undergoing a dramatic transformation. This was a time marked by explosive economic growth when the world watched in awe as China rapidly modernized its cities and infrastructure. In the early 2000s, China's manufacturing sector was booming, drawing millions of rural workers into sprawling urban centers. The government, eager to accommodate this massive wave of urban migration, launched an unprecedented construction spree. Towering cranes became a permanent fixture on the skyline, and entire city districts seemed to rise overnight. High-rise apartments sprouted across the urban landscape, each one a symbol of China's newfound economic might and ambition. These gleaming towers promised modern living and prosperity, drawing in families from all walks of life. But beneath the surface of this rapid development, cracks were already beginning to form. The pressure to build quickly and cheaply meant that construction companies often prioritized speed over safety and quality. In the rush to meet ambitious targets, corners were cut, and essential building standards were sometimes ignored. The regulatory framework, still catching up with the pace of change, struggled to enforce building codes effectively. Oversight was inconsistent, and inspections were often little more than a formality. This allowed substandard practices to flourish, with little fear of consequence. In this environment, corruption found fertile ground. Developers, eager to maximize profits, would sometimes bribe officials to overlook the use of inferior materials or shoddy workmanship. This culture of shortcuts and backroom deals became deeply entrenched in the industry. As the years passed and these buildings aged, the consequences of these early decisions became impossible to ignore. What once looked like a miracle of modern engineering began to reveal its flaws. Residents began to experience frequent failures in basic infrastructure. Plumbing systems, hastily installed and poorly maintained, started to leak and break down. Electrical wiring, often not up to code, posed serious safety risks. Inadequate insulation meant that apartments became unbearably hot in the summer and freezing cold in the winter. Many families found themselves relying on electric fans or space heaters just to get by, driving up their energy bills. Common areas like hallways and elevators fell into disrepair. Without regular maintenance, small issues quickly escalated into major hazards, making daily life more difficult and sometimes even dangerous for residents. The situation was made worse by the economic slowdown of recent years. As China's growth cooled, local governments, once flush with cash from land sales and development, found their revenues shrinking. Many struggled to fund even the most basic repairs and upgrades for aging buildings. For ordinary residents, the burden has become overwhelming. With living costs rising and wages stagnating, many simply cannot afford the upkeep required to keep their homes safe and comfortable. Elderly residents, in particular, are often left to cope with deteriorating conditions on their own. All these factors, breakneck growth, weak regulation, poor construction, lack of maintenance, and mounting economic pressures, have combined to create a perfect storm. Today, millions of people find themselves living in buildings that are not only aging, but also increasingly unsafe, highlighting the urgent need for reform and investment in China's urban future. Mr. Chen, a migrant worker from Sichuan province, shares a cramped two-room apartment with his wife and two young children in a high-rise on the outskirts of Shenzhen. Like millions of others, he left his rural hometown in search of a better future, hoping the city would offer opportunities that the countryside could not. But the reality he faces is far from the dream he once imagined. The paint peels from the walls, and mold creeps across the ceiling. The air is thick and damp, making it difficult for the children to breathe easily, especially during the humid summer months. The single window offers a view of a neighboring building, equally dilapidated. From this vantage point, the city's promise seems distant, almost unreachable, obscured by the reality of daily hardship. "We came here for a better life," he says, his voice heavy with resignation. Each day he wonders if the sacrifices are worth it, if the city will ever truly welcome families like his. But it's a constant struggle. The family squeezes together at night, trying to find comfort in the little space they have, their dreams of a brighter future undimmed but often clouded by uncertainty. The rent keeps going up, but the building keeps falling apart. Leaking pipes, broken fixtures, and unreliable electricity are part of daily life, yet the landlord offers no relief. Despite these challenges, the family does their best to maintain a sense of normalcy. The children do their homework at the kitchen table, and their mother sews clothes to save money, making small sacrifices every day. Mr. Chen's story is not unique. All around him, other families face the same hardships, their lives shaped by the relentless pressures of urban living. Millions of migrant workers, drawn to China's cities by the promise of economic opportunity, find themselves trapped in a cycle of poverty and substandard housing. The dream of prosperity is often replaced by the reality of overcrowded apartments and unsafe living conditions. For many, these high-rises represent their only hope of securing a foothold in the city. The buildings tower above the streets, symbols of both aspiration and adversity, filled with families who refuse to give up. They often work long hours in factories or on construction sites, sending remittances back to their families in the countryside. Their labor fuels the city's growth, yet their own lives remain on the margins. Yet despite their hard work and sacrifice, they are denied the basic dignity of safe and decent housing. The system seems stacked against them, making it nearly impossible to break free from the cycle. In the face of such adversity, a spirit of resilience shines through. Families find ways to celebrate small victories, sharing laughter and hope, even in the toughest times. Residents come together to address shared problems, organizing community cleanups, pooling resources for repairs, and supporting one another through the challenges of daily life. These acts of solidarity create a sense of belonging, even when the city itself feels indifferent. Children play in the hallways, neighbors share meals, and elderly residents offer wisdom and comfort. In these moments, the community becomes a lifeline, helping everyone endure. Their stories are a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure even in the most difficult of circumstances. Each family, each neighbor, adds a thread to the fabric of resilience that holds the community together. But it's a resilience born of necessity, not choice. The strength they show is remarkable, but it is also a reminder of the injustices they face. It's a stark reminder that behind China's economic miracle lies a human cost, a cost borne by those who can least afford it. As the city skyline glitters with new wealth, the struggles of families like Mr. Chen's remain hidden in the shadows, waiting for their stories to be heard.